Hello, I am the Dungeon Tutor, and you are about to take your first steps into a much, much larger world. I am the Dungeon Tutor, and this video is intended to help for people who are coming in from outside. People who've heard of role-playing games before but have never had the experience. And that can be a very, very, very strange situation to step into. Mostly because I can't possibly prepare you for all of the different varieties of experiences you might have. I can't tell you, for instance, what your party is going to be like, what your relationship with a games master is going to be like. All I can do is offer you some generalities and some advice and hope that that carries you through. But I think with all of my experience, I might have some insights that can help. So, first of all, if you've never done a role-playing game before, you've never played anything outside of perhaps a video game role-playing game, which is quite a different experience. Tabletop role-playing games, both online and in person, have a different experience. First of all, it's a group experience, unless you're playing solo, in which case it's more like a video game experience, except that you can change the rules, and we'll talk about that in another video, though. In a tabletop role-playing game, you play with other people, which means nobody knows exactly where the story's going to go. And that is actually really cool. It means that your experience in that game is going to be unique to the people who are watching you, who are playing alongside of you. And that's pretty cool. Part of what makes live play so tantalizing is that you don't know exactly how it's going to be, and one person, no matter how unlikely, can rise up and be the star at a given moment. Now, the most general experience in tabletop role-playing games is to have one person who is also a player, but step aside and take a different role as the game master. They can have a variety of different names. For instance, Dungeons & Dragons calls that the Dungeon Master. In the White Wolf role-playing games, that's the Storyteller, but they do effectively the same thing. They're the person who knows the game that the people are going to be playing. They know the story overall. They know the different characters the players' characters will bump into, and they basically guide the rest through the game as it is. It's a little bit complicated, and yes, I will be making videos to help people who are either elected to be the game master or who choose to be the game master, either way. But the overall experience is that that person is kind of in charge. They are nominally the default authority for a role-playing game. Now, not all games have a clear game master, and that's fine. I'm just covering the general, and we'll go to specific when we talk about individual games. But generally, the game master is the person to whom the world responds, and then the players get to act on what the game masters reveal. Now, the players have an important part, too. Don't make it seem like the game master is the only important part. In a story, you have the protagonists, the heroes, the people who actually are the ones that you care about in the main. And they are the ones that have license and action within the story. Now, different games alter that to some degree, but the players are the ones who play and run as the players' characters, and the player characters are generally the protagonists of the story. Now, how that happens and comes about can vary. Perhaps the players get to choose from a selection of pre-generated characters or have one assigned to them. That way they are ready to go right at the beginning of the game, and the characters' statistics and all of their gear and numbers are already decided for them, so they don't have to spend any extra time doing that. Alternatively, some games will have the players create their characters. This gives them license to make the characters they imagine. Sometimes. There are games that break that rule as well. As you notice, there's a lot of exceptions in role-playing games because there are just so many of them. But in the main, the players get to choose certain things about their characters. What their job is, perhaps some of what their experiences are, their outlook that they have. There may be some random element, like rolling for your statistics so that your character's final abilities aren't necessarily something you choose. Other games allow you to buy certain skills, abilities, and attributes based on a common pool of building points, but in general, the players will end up with a shiny new player character that they can introduce into the game. And if your character should, in the course of the game, die, you may be able to make another one and go on with this new character in the stead of your old. Now, why a player character is so important is the simple fact that without the players, the Game Master is just an author writing a story. The players take the story that they're introduced to and then go in their own direction. Now, I'm not saying that players' characters necessarily can just go wherever they want and do anything. There is oftentimes a certain amount of guidance that they're given into the storyline, either because their characters are motivated by their own personal interests and trying to drive the story forward, but sometimes it's also the fact that external forces are acting upon them. In other words, the Game Master has a story too, and that story is often going to drive the plot, drive the players forward. The player's wishes and desires may alter that to some extent. It may lead to some interesting side quests or whatever else you're going to do. But oftentimes the overwhelming need to accomplish something or an opportunity that presents itself is what's going to move the story forward. Unless you fight it as hard as you can as a player character, and if you do that, you might not be playing the right game. But in general, your job is to take the world that you're given and make decisions based on your character that you're playing. Now, that's the general structure of the game and the responsibilities between the players and the Game Master. That can be a very tangled web, or it can be very straightforward. I've seen all sorts of dynamics in terms of role-playing games, and generally they fit into a mold similar to this. Despite the fact that roles have different names, despite the fact that characters are created in different ways, doesn't really matter. The players get to be the people who make decisions and make roles for their characters, usually, and the Game Master is the one who knows what's going on, and as the players uncover more of the world, they reveal it. So, to put again in general terms, Game Master creates the world, reveals everything that the player characters are going to see, hear, and in some cases even understand. And the players take that and they decide what their characters do. The Game Master decides if dice need to be rolled or a card needs to be drawn or whatever the game requires, and then adjudicates the results. Do the players succeed? Do the player characters not succeed? Is there consequences for a failure? And move forward, back and forth, as the actions of the players' characters are resolved. The Game Master reveals the results, and then the player characters get to react to those results. And it just back and forth. When you come into a new scene, generally the Game Master reveals what the player characters see, hear, and do, possibly also summing up a little bit about how they got there. And then the players decide what their characters are going to do in reaction to that setting. Is it going to be to launch into a combat with whatever they see? Is it going to be to talk to people and have some role play involved with their characters freely conversing, for better or for worse, possibly, or maybe gaining something like information or an advantage or a bargain? Sure, this can all happen within the scope of a game. So, that is, in general, the role-playing game experience. Yes, in the way, there's lots of things like character sheets, dice, maybe cards, props possibly, books, and the like. But if you're getting into a role-playing game, it's important to kind of know what's going to happen. And in general, what's going to happen is going to be you as a player playing a character, or you as a game master setting the world before the players and coming up with things to answer their questions about what do we see, what do I do, what do I want to do, and moving things forward and making sure that everybody has fun. Ultimately, the most important thing to know about these games is that they are games, and the end goal is to have fun. However you get there, it doesn't matter what I think or what anybody else thinks about a game, as long as you and your friends enjoy themselves and it makes you want to come back and do it again, you're probably doing the right thing. But, as always, you can always get better. The experience can get richer, deeper, more fulfilling as you gain experience and do. That's how you improve at role-playing games, is by experiencing it and trying it out and trying new things from time to time. All of which, stick with me and I can be your guide to the further and greater world of role-playing games in general. So, if this is your first time, you're very welcome here. You have a great deal to look forward to, and I'll admit, I envy you. I've experienced many things over my many years of playing, but every time I find something new, it's something special. Something I didn't know before, something I'm better for knowing now. And you've got an awful lot of that ahead of you. So, welcome aboard. That is the lesson for today, my friends. What a game feels like. What a game should be expected to be like when you're encountering it. Besides the interpersonal dynamics and things of that nature, and of course specifics by game, by rules, by group, that can give you a guideline on what games are like. So, you're welcome to it. As always, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Thank you for joining me. If you have some recollections of your first times, or even better, if you've just had a first time and you want to tell us what your experience is like, by all means, please leave it in the comments. We would love to hear more about it and welcome you into our community properly. Who knows, might even make a good video coming up, and we can chat more about that as we go. If you enjoyed this, I do hope you come back for more videos, and if you'd like to like and subscribe to this channel, that would be great. Notification will let you know when more videos are coming, and that's also fun. But after this, my friends, it will be until the next video, in which time I hope you yourself get a chance to roll some dice, play some games, have some fun, and stay safe out there. Until next time, farewell.